Hi, welcome to The Genre Question. What's the question? What the fuck is my genre anyway? Historically, each era in Western music had an overarching musical genre. There were rules, and everyone followed them, until a rebel came along and changed things. But his music, or her music, mostly him unfortunately in the past, would be based on the music of the previous era. And so on it went. Classical music, romantic music, you get the gist. Then in the early 40s, 50s, 60s, we started country, rock and roll. Things changed. But the labels were still running things. And so musicians were largely told what they could create until they inevitably went out on their own and found their own sound. What we have now is a bunch of creatives who can create anything, and that's what we want to do. But in the early days of your career, you need to be marketable. You need to find a sound that people can identify. You get the question, what kind of music do you play? And is not a great answer. Neither is, well, it's kind of a blend of this and fusion with that, and listing a bunch of genres and then saying it's a blend of those, because people don't know what you mean and don't know if they're going to like it or not. They tend to just go, okay, and you never hear from them again. In my quest to define my own genre, I've discovered that I don't know as much about modern musical genres as I should. You see, all my training was in classical music, but that isn't where I work now. I've really struggled to pin down what my own genre is and where I fit in this huge spectrum of modern contemporary music. So I had an idea. There are lots of musicians in the forums and courses I'm taking who are in a similar place to me. They found their sound, but they don't know how to define it or what genre or subgenre it fits into. Equally, there are loads of musicians in those forums who have found their place. They've done the seemingly impossible. They fit into an easily recognizable genre, or they have created one themselves. And so I have decided, I've had a fun idea, I'm going to interview those people. We're going to start with the people who have found their sound. So today, the first of these interviews is with Sam Morrison of the Sam Morrison Band. Sam is honestly a great all-round guy and has been something of a mentor to me, even though our genres couldn't be more different. He's a great all-round guy, as I said. He makes all his own t-shirts. He's a maker, he's an artist. He's from America, so this is an international concern. And he also sings in a tribute band. So he's a busy guy, and he really knows what he's talking about. He's been a musician for a very long time. So before we start, I'm going to play you one of Sam's songs so you have some idea, if you don't know his work, of what it is you're listening to and what he's talking about. So come along for the journey. Whether or not you're a musician yourself or just interested in the topic, you might discover a band or a musician you haven't heard of before, or even a whole genre you don't know anything about. I have. I've got a bunch of musicians who have been open and honest and generous enough to share their time with me, lined up to do these interviews with me. So I'll be uploading every Sunday for the foreseeable future. Hopefully not indefinitely. Hopefully we'll get to the end of this and we'll have an answer to the question, what the fuck is my genre anyway?
I like my bourbon over ice when I'm feeling kinda sad. I shoot my whiskey straight when I'm feeling kinda mad. When I'm feeling down, like I've been born to lose, I chase my blues with the whiskey. I chase my whiskey with the blues. want to get there fast, just one sip at a time while I'm thinking about the past. When your memory calls, only one thing I can do, I chase my blues with the whiskey. I chase my whiskey with the blues. I chase my blues with the whiskey. I chase my whiskey with the blues. They're just so good together, you know I can't refuse. Like cornbread and butter, or beans and barbecue. I chase my blues with the whiskey. I chase my whiskey with the blues. With the blues, they're just so good together, you know I can't refuse. Like cornbread and butter, or beans and barbecue. I chase my blues with the whiskey, and I chase my whiskey with the blues. Like cornbread and butter, a late night rendezvous with you. I chase my blues with the whiskey, and I chase my whiskey with the blues.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. It hasn't heated up too much over here in Melbourne. Up in the northern states, it's pretty hot.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah, and we're finally not in lockdown anymore here in Melbourne, which is great.
Uh, well, they're starting to lock down here. I mean, we're going into fall, so it's starting to get cooler, and
They
it's
say that's going to be an issue, yeah.
yeah, it's been, I don't know. We were getting to the point where we could go to restaurants and stuff again, but now they've had a surge of cases, and it's starting to. They're talking about closing things down again. It's been crazy. I had this year I had booked up to be the busiest year that the band's ever had, and everything got canceled.
I know it sort of feels like this whole every musician I know has had the same thing, and everyone's talking about how hospitality has suffered and how this industry suffered, that industry suffered, but people don't seem to mention the arts.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if all the venues are closed, where do you think we went? Anyway, so this is I've already done my intro, but this is a talk we're doing about what the F is genre anyway, we're calling it, because you and I met through where all of this began for me in the Savvy Musician Academy.
Yes.
And I saw that you knew what you were talking about and sneakily started picking your brains in the messenger. About, hey, what should I do about trying to find my sound over here?
Yeah.
So I know you know a few things, and we've had a little snippet of your music played already. So I'm going to just start with one question. I didn't send you this question, but it should be a fairly easy one for you.
Okay.
So I've titled this Polar Opposites, and I'm going to be asking everyone this. So Sam, that's you. Tell me the genre you love the most. You can only choose one. The one that makes you sing along, and what makes your heart sing.
The one I love the most, I don't know. To me, I don't know. Well, this whole thing is on genre, and we should be talking about the specific genres. But music in itself is awesome for me, and I see similarities in a lot of different genres. But um, I kind of grew up in country music. Southern rock music is kind of the genre that I'm in right now, and kind of a cross between the two is where my happy place is. That's what I listen to the most.
Okay, okay, all right. And now the genre that makes you press skip or just turn off, the one that makes your head fall into your hands and want to grow. And what's
Yeah,
that one for you?
I'm not real crazy about EDM. Um, I mean, I can appreciate what all goes into putting it together, but there's not
Yeah,
actually anybody sitting there playing something. To me, it's like it's a bunch of computerized MIDI loops, and it's I can appreciate the work that goes into putting it together, but I you can't just have a guy on stage with a guitar and do that. So I'm not real crazy about EDM.
yeah. I want to go into a whole discussion there about DJs who don't play an instrument calling themselves musicians.
Yeah.
But we'll make that another.
Yeah, I just you're a DJ. You're well again too. I mean, maybe it's because I'm old, but playing records doesn't make you a musician.
Playing other people's music and dropping them in the bass and all of that.
Adding sound effects isn't writing creating parts.
No, it ain't. No, it ain't. So I think we agree on that one. Okay, now so keeping on, as I'm sure you and I could we've both been musicians for a long time, so we could talk about most of these things
Oh
till
yeah,
the cows come. But your earliest memory of being moved by music, where did that happen?
I can remember exactly when I wanted to start playing music. When I was a little kid, and this may be even before your time, but do you remember a band called the Monkees?
Hey, hey, with the
That's
monkeys.
it. When I
Yeah.
was a kid, my aunt used to
Dream
watch.
believer.
Yeah, exactly. She used to
Yeah.
watch that show, and I used to think that is the coolest thing in the world. Those guys are living on the beach with their buddies playing music, and what is cooler than that? And so, as a kid, I memorized those Monkey records. I mean, I could sing all the songs. I mean, I didn't know how to play at the time, but that kind of set it in my mind that I wanted to. A lot of people say the first time I heard the Beatles, but for me, it was the Monkees.
Well, for me, it was at church.
There. That's me
So
too.
yeah, I mean I mean, I loved the hymns and everything. I still miss singing at church. I'm
Yeah.
very on top of Christmas time because I do wander around just singing carols all over the place. But
Mm,
I think when you grow up with that stuff, it sticks with you. And I think the melodic element of that sticks
yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
And the Monkeys was, I think, the music of that time in general. But the Monkeys were, it was very melodic.
Yeah, it was. They're some of the greatest songwriters of all time. Neil Diamond wrote songs for the Monkees.
Yeah,
It was great stuff. I mean, there was a big
they weren't indie rock, that's for sure. They were having stuff written for them.
yeah, completely. And there was a big thing in the time about they didn't play their own instruments, but the band that played their instruments was the Wrecking Crew. None of the bands back then played their own instruments. The Beach Boys didn't play on their records. Sonny and Cher didn't play on their records. The Turtles didn't play on their records. It was all the Wrecking Crew. There was one band in L.A. that played on all those records. But the Monkees just got the bad rap for it because they had a hit TV show.
Tall Poppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Oh, no. So, and then, okay, so would that then lean into what did you love as a teenager, or was that when you were younger? Was the
That's when I
Monkeys, and then
was. That was when I was really young. I mean, I was 10. As I started
mhm.
getting into my teenage years, I was more into it started out like with kind of AM pop radio of the 70s, and then I discovered FM, and then I started getting into more of the what's now considered classic rock bands, Grand Funk Railroad, that sort of thing. My parents were
It's
really in.
although when things that you loved as a teenager start being called classic or worse yet, vintage, and you think, I'm
I
not
know.
that old.
Yeah, yeah. But we had all the good music. I'm just saying. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
listened to a lot of those kind of bands. It's like all teenage boys at that time. I went through a major Kiss phase, and I I thought Kiss was the greatest band in the world, and that was pretty much a big chunk of my teenage years until the first time I heard Leonard Skinner play Freebird, and then that changed my life. And
How old were you then? Was it in
That's
your
when I
sort
started the
of,
Southern rock thing.
were you already playing guitar then?
I started playing guitar actually when I was like 10 years old, but I wasn't really my teacher was really into country music and the Chet Atkins finger style guitar playing, and I wanted to play. I want to rock and roll all night in Detroit Rock City. I wanted to play Kiss songs, and so he gave me a foundation, but I didn't apply it to rock music until later. But
And
I finally got it figured out.
so is Kiss what you would define as rock music? Would that be your first go to clarify what is rock?
Well, it was to me at the time. I mean, if you ask me now, is that it's still rock music? But like I said, I mean, here we start talking into genres where things start getting. It depends on what kind of rock music.
I know. It's just, yeah, I know. I'll keep going with my question. Oh, no, I won't because it's probably good if we take these as ways to flow through the conversation
Okay.
rather than. So if we then stop and think, okay, so Kiss was your first foray into, or your first great love in rock music.
Yeah.
And then we say, well, what is rock music? Because I think rock and pop are probably the two biggest genres of our time. Would you
Yeah.
say that was accurate?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think country kind of fits into rock in a way, doesn't it? Like if you had to do a genre and then subgenre,
Well, I think
or would you?
a lot of people would
I mean,
say that rock more fits into country, but depending on how you look, I mean, when Elvis first started, I mean, Elvis was kind of the beginning of rock and roll, and
and
he was doing rockabilly and country at the time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
yeah, I guess it just kind of depends on where you're from and what you were raised listening to. I mean, it all kind of um, it's all kind of incestuous. I mean, they got a lot of rock stuff from the country, and they stole all of country and rock both from the blues, and so all the British bands were stealing. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles were stealing all the the black southern blues guys guitar riffs and songs, and so it all just became like a big melting pot, I think. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah.
yeah.
So you,
But yeah, I mean, but for me, where I was at and where I was growing up, Kiss was a very big influence, and and again, it was the songs they were singing, what they were doing. I mean, it was rebellious. It was loud. They had the makeup, so your parents hated it, and as a teenage guy, you loved that part of it. Um, and it was fun. It was like they were like superheroes, and I don't know, I really dug it. But the more that I really started listening to other bands and getting into more music, I realized that Kiss wasn't really, they weren't great songwriters, they weren't great musicians, but at the time that's where I was. And like I said, when I actually, the first time I heard Freebird by Leonard Skinner, that was a moment that changed everything for me. It's like these are real songs, and these guys can play guitar, and that started me into my southern rock um, road or travel.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah, definitely. For me as a singer, that there's so many singers I can reference that you can't, that have never been replicated.
Yeah.
And these days you're almost scoffed at. If those, I wonder if oh God, what is the name of the singer of the Carpenters? What was her name? The
Oh, Karen Carpenter.
Karen. I was thinking Carol. I'm like, it's not Carol.
No, it's
I'm not
Carol
so Carol.
King.
Yeah, Carol King. Carol King, I think, would definitely be okay today. But Karen King from the Carpenters and Judith Durham from the Seekers and
Uh-huh.
voices like that, if they came along today, I just don't know that they would be given the time of day.
Well,
Because
as,
anything that sounds like that is sort of written off as classical, and that's classical.
yeah, I mean the quality of their voices. I mean Karen Carpenter, she had an amazing voice. I mean that chick could
Yeah,
sing,
phenomenal.
and
Yeah,
if she was here today, I mean I'm sure that part of what makes something classic or whatever is just the music that you put behind it. I mean, if you listen to Adele, Karen Carpenter could sing any of those songs, and but
I don't know if the range would be the same though, because Adele's. I think her big. I mean, maybe Adele, if she just sang in a different range, would be a different thing. But it's that Adele's great. I mean, Adele's fantastic. I'm not questioning that, but it's that bassy sound that she
yeah,
has. That real. It's all the altos.
yeah,
Get the real. Karen had that. Why do birds suddenly appear? And it was that very tuneful, melodic. I probably picked a song she didn't sing just there, but no, but that very tuneful, melodic, and same with Judith Durham with that. You think about the songs she sang and the way she sang them. I just wonder if that would be anyway. That's a whole other thing about. I mean, what genre would you put that into? Is it folk?
uh, well, again, I mean, if you're talking about Carole King or Karen Carpenter, I mean, that would be in acoustic pop rock. That's what I would say that their
Yeah.
style would be.
I saw Carole King listed as soft rock, and I was like, no, that's not right. And then I thought, oh, hang on. If you think about, I feel the earth move under my
Yeah,
feet, oh, soft rock. But then if you go back to she wrote that song. They say the neon lights are bright on
did
Broadway.
she write that?
Oh yeah, I saw the musical.
Oh wow, no, I didn't.
Yeah, and I suppose beautiful is soft rock. But then Tapestry's not soft rock.
uh,
That's definitely a folk song.
yeah, well,
Would
like I
you
said, I mean, a lot of it kind of
disagree?
merges together. But that I mean that's kind of what makes it unique, I guess. Is like when you take all these influences that come together with you and then you make it your own. That's where you get your sound. I mean, because if everybody said, okay, this is exactly what soft rock is, and you have to do this, and this, then everybody would sound that way, and it would be their
Do
thing.
you think that back in the times when there were lots more big labels, and if you were any good and you were out there and you're performing, you got a record deal?
Mhm.
I mean, it didn't happen for everybody. I'm not saying we live in an age where no one gets anything, and it used to be that everyone got everything.
Yeah,
But if most people who got out there and toured and were actually good musicians, got signed to a label, and then the label did largely tell you what to play and what based on what they could sell.
yeah. Well, yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, it because that's their business. They want to sell records, and they want
Yeah.
they don't care what's on the piece of plastic as long as they get their money for it. And so, I mean, whatever artist they do sign, I mean, they want to make sure that they try to, because they're dumping a lot of money into this, and they want to make sure that they get their money back. And yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of artists that lose their artistic integrity because they had to do what the record company wanted them to do, and
Yeah,
that's
I don't know. We can talk about. I mean, the whole artistic integrity thing. It's so hard to talk. Like, I don't want to diss anybody in that respect because, and I don't think you were, but I don't. We all just have to try and make a living out of this, don't we?
yeah,
When it's what you love and it's what you want to do. If someone offers you, I mean, I don't have a record deal, so I have the benefit of being as creative as I want to be, and no one can tell me otherwise. But I also don't get paid. So,
yeah. Well,
I
I mean,
think
Yeah, again, but it depends on, what is your end goal in performing music and writing music and doing it all. I mean, if your goal is to be the most successful person that you could possibly be, and make a ton of money and have your face on Billboard magazine, then you're going to do whatever the record company, whatever's current right now, whatever they're writing songs about, that's what you're going to sing about. You're going to do everything you can to be that. But if your goal is to, write songs for your Sunday school and have the little kids sing their songs back to you, then, that's a different kind of success. It just depends on what your definition of success is and what you're trying to do. With
Absolutely. Yeah.
with me, I mean, again, if you're trying to make a living doing it, a lot of people, if you say you're in a cover band or a tribute band, they look at you and like, oh yeah, okay, well, you're you know
Well, that's
you're
hard
selling
work.
out, but you're making money. I mean, that's kind of the what I ran up against. I had a day job that I hated, and it was I was ready to kill somebody if I didn't get out of there. And I had the opportunity to do this tribute project. A lot of people say that when I sing, I sound like Bob Seger, and so
Okay.
I had some buddies of mine that were in different tribute bands, and instead of playing 5 6 hours a night in a bar for $300, as soon as you start doing a tribute act, then you're playing 90 minutes in huge casino showrooms and 1,500 seaters, and you're getting paid real money, and you're
Yeah.
because it's a different kind of stuff. So I actually wound up getting a record deal with this Bob Seger tribute show that I did, and the guy that did it was he was a big promoter back in the '80s. He was an engineer. He worked with Madonna. He worked with Julian Lennon. He worked with Pink Floyd, Kelly Clarkson. I mean, he's the real deal. He called me
Yeah.
and he said, I want to have you come sing these Bob Seger songs. And I'm like, well, why? And he said, well, Google me and then call me back. So I Googled him and found out that he really was, legit. And he told me that at the time, Bob Seger wasn't on iTunes. And so anytime in the world, anywhere in the world, somebody wanted to listen to old time rock and roll, they bought my recording of it. And so that being the case, we've had 750,000 downloads of these songs. I've on my Spotify numbers for the Bob Seger stuff is way up in the millions. And people, they say
Stop it. I'm being jealous. Stop it. Stop it.
this. Well, no, but the point that I'm making though is like that was a path that I chose to make money, and I
Yeah.
quit my day job and I became this Bob Seger tribute act, and
I have to know that it's incredibly hard work.
yeah, it
That
is.
that
And you automatically you go on tour and you start, playing real venues, and lots of people come out, and it's a good thing. But when I did that, again, here comes the artistic integrity. I, my original music got put on the back burner because I didn't have time to do it. I mean, we're
there's
touring
only
and
so
we're
many hours
traveling all the
a day.
time.
Yeah.
And so
And
it was a trade off. So again, it depends on your goal, is what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, of what you're trying to accomplish with your music, as to whether you're selling out or you're a success.
and that does come back to the genre question, because if you choose a genre that nobody wants or nobody's interested in, and I think that's where I'm at the moment, of dipping my toe in the water and going, hey, anybody interested in this? you know, and then trying something else. Maybe you'll prefer this. But I think you've got to try a little bit of this and that if you don't just fit the mold.
Yeah. Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, but again, that's the thing, is like you can't do an album where the first song is a country song, the second song is an '80s disco song, the third song is a folk rock song.
What I mean.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got so many different styles and say, well, I do everything, well, that means you really probably don't do anything well. So, and that's one of the things that I see in the Savvy Musician Academy where we met, is like there's so many people that are struggling with what is my genre, and
Yeah.
I think what it is they just haven't written enough songs and they haven't really figured out who they are. They've got, just like I said, they've got 5 different styles of songs and they're trying to figure out what their genre is from those 5. And it's like, well, no, write more songs. If you can't find a genre and you can't figure out what it is, then just choose one
Yeah, and
and
that's
then
what you
do that.
with me to choose one. It doesn't matter which one.
Yeah,
Just choose one and focus on it. And I've now got a whole album. Here's the cup that advertises
there
it.
you go.
Blatant play. What do you call it? Merch. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Thank you. Sorry. It would be the pain medicine for my dental issues causing my brain to malfunction. Anyway, so next question. You're a font of knowledge, I tell you. Okay, so this isn't. Well, I'm going to skip the genre one because I think you've sort of answered that, and we might come back to it. Does the way you sing or the way you play impact the definition of your genre equally, or is one more important? That is, could a female singer with a light pop voice sing your music and it would still be recognizably your genre? Or does your voice and your style of singing define? So let's go the voice question. Leave the playing out of it for now.
Okay.
Does your voice help define your style, your sound, and your genre?
For my genre, yes.
Yeah.
70 I did a thing when you look at your analytics on Spotify, 75% of the people that listen to me are male. And the songs that encompass southern rock are about American pride, drinking, carrying on, carousing in bars, rambling. Those are kind of the topics of songs that are
You
in.
can't do it in a moment.
So a lot of ladies don't feel comfortable singing about those topics, and so in the southern rock genre, yeah, I mean it's there have been a couple of female singers in the genre, but for the most part, if you're in a southern rock band, it's a bunch of bar brawling redneck
The good old
hippies.
boys.
Good old boys, exactly.
Okay, so that answers that one. Now, okay, so equally, the way if someone's like if we pick a different guitar player, say a folk guitar player, right? Say Bob Dylan or John Denver, if they came in and started picking and strumming their way through your songs,
Mm-hmm.
would that totally change the genre, or could that be worked into what you do?
The guys that you said are kind of folk singer songwriter kind of guys. It's a lot of what determines the southern rock genre is just it's the song topics. I mean, it's what the songs are about, and um, yeah, I don't know that John Denver singing calypso would be the same thing as.
No, not the singing though, the playing. You're
But
focusing on the
you're
playing,
talking about the actual playing style. Uh,
just their style of guitar.
yeah,
And it feels like someone you're more familiar with their guitar style, if you like, but
yeah
just someone that's opposite to what
the
you
singer
do.
songwriter acoustic guitar kind of stuff is probably not as I mean there are a few songs in southern rock that kind of have a slower ballady kind of guitar thing like that, but it's really known for 15-minute guitar solos. I mean, the Allman Brothers on the they played a
I
version of
love
Whipping
that.
Post that lasted 28 minutes on the live at Fillmore. I mean, one song, it's 28 minutes, but and it's a lot of guitar playing, and so I
It's
mean
got to be good
that's
if
a.
people aren't switching off in that amount of time, though.
I'm sorry.
It's got to be good if people aren't switching off
Oh
for
yeah,
28 minutes.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Those guys were amazing, but that's part of what southern rock music is it's that. And again, that's why a lot of guys watch it. I mean, it's like it's guitar players and it's guys that are like loving that kind of music. Um, yeah, so I mean, uh, there are some mellower kind of a songs that are in southern rock, but the majority of it is really kind of bombastic, in your face kind of stuff. So yeah, but again, that's what makes the two different styles.
Yeah. So it's just interesting that I find some of the genres are more interchangeable than others.
Uh-huh.
So that question is really to try and see, could your style be, does it lend itself to others? Like, okay, so to flip that question on its head, can you think of a style or a singer from another band that's not in your genre who could step into your shoes?
Yeah, I mean, especially in like what we do. There's always, like I said before, there's big crossovers between rock and country, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of modern country right now that is nothing but pop music
Yeah.
with a banjo in it. But there's a lot of there's also a lot of country music right now. There's modern country that is southern rock. I mean, it's a little more of a twang, but it's almost like the modern version of what southern rock would be if Leonard Skinner hadn't have died in the plane crash. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bands that can cross over, and most of those bands quote southern rock as their influence that they melded in with country. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things like that can cross together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you'll write a song that out of nowhere sounds like something different. But do you find that difficult when, maybe not difficult, but okay, how should I phrase this? How do you feel when you write a song and play it, say, to your band for the first time, or you play it as a band to an audience, and people come up to you afterwards and say, "Man, that fifth song that sounded exactly like blah blah blah," and they, this stuff, being compared to, or something being pulled out of your normal sound, and you being told it sounds like this, or being told it sounds like that. How does that make you feel?
You're going to get comparisons with everything that you do. I mean, I and sometimes it bothers me, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of depends. But I mean, the fact that I've been in a tribute band for so long and everybody comes up to me, you sound exactly like Bob Seger. I can't believe it. I close my eyes and you sound exactly like Bob Seger. I don't think I sound anything like him, but everybody else does. So I mean, it's all sometimes it's just a personal thing of what other people. It's just what it means to them, kind of a thing. But you know, there's only 12 notes in music, from Bach to Beethoven to the Beatles to whoever, and so I
Yeah.
mean, you're never gonna have something that's so completely original that it's never drawn from any other source. And so a lot of the genres are they're music is just it's music, and it's all interconnected, I think. And I don't know, I don't even know if I answered your question through all of that, but
All good. It's all good. No, but I think that you're right in that it is all interconnected. Being someone, I may or may not have said at this point of things that, and that my background is in classical.
yeah,
I have my master's in music, and I studied history and everything for a very long time. And so, my understanding of music comes from a long way back. You study, when you look at musical history, modern music, pop, rock, folk, no matter, yeah, you go back just as far as Elvis. I mean, that's a drop in the ocean of musical history.
right,
I mean, but that's the world we're living in. But I think my point that I'm trying to make here, probably very slowly and badly, succinct, is not one of my strong points. Um, is that we have such a huge pool to draw from these days.
yeah,
Mozart and Beethoven and those guys, they had patrons, and the church had it, and they had very strict rules about what Bach, for example. I mean, that whole system of tonality that he had to work within. I mean, the Greeks had their own system of tonality, and some of them were banned. You couldn't write in the Dorian mode because it
really,
would excite people. Yes, it would. You could only use that for marches and military days. So that there's a whole wealth of knowledge there that is interesting to touch on, I think. But I think to some extent we all have so much music and so many things to be inspired and influenced by, just musically, not for the sky and how pretty a day it is, but just music. There's so much of it now.
yeah.
How do you stay within one genre? It's so, like, there's just so many things that are interesting to play and sing and mess. You just find yourself picking something out on the guitar and it's nothing like what you normally play. Do you just put that to one side, or and how much do you think we are all influenced by a huge range of music?
Well, we are influenced by everything. I mean, there is like a ton of music that we filter through. I mean, everything from the music that we're hearing on the TV commercials. When I
Well, that's people
listen
hear
to
their
my
classic
granddaughter, singing Baby Shark, I mean, all that stuff filters into your head, and sometimes it won't go away. Um,
worm.
yeah, you get those earworms. But um, I don't know. I mean, it's so easy, but it's so hard to explain at the same time. Whenever I'm working on a song and I put it together again, it all comes back to um, with the song by itself at its core is just me and a guitar. And when
Yeah.
I've got that song at that point, um, I can take it in any direction I want to actually take it. I mean, if I want it to be country, I can make it country. If I want it to be southern rock, I can do that. If I wanted it to be I can make it whatever it is that I want to make it. But it's again, it comes back to a lot of times the song just lends itself to what it is, and I just follow the song where it's at. I mean, on our second album, I've got a song on there. The whole second album, it's called Dig It or Don't. If you get a chance to check it out, and it's all southern rock songs. They're really guitar driving, drinking, carrying on kind of songs. But I've got one song on there that I wrote that was inspired. Me and my wife were in New York City the very first time I'd ever been to New York City, and um, I saw this homeless girl that was in the alley. I mean, she was probably 16, 17 years old. And it was a hustle and bustle. I mean, it was way pre COVID, and the people were just walking by so fast. And I mean, I only saw her for a split second, but she was sitting there in this alley. She was on her knees with a cardboard sign that says, "I just want to go home." And she was crying. My wife didn't even see her. And as soon as I saw her, again, we moved right past. But that affected me so much that I wrote a song about that. It's called Somebody's Daughter, and it is
And
completely.
tell everyone the name of your band so they can find that
Oh,
song.
sure, it's
In case
the Sam Morrison Band.
the Sam Morrison band. And
Yeah,
what's the
yeah.
name of the song again?
The song is called Somebody's Daughter.
Because I want to go hear that. That sounds
Yeah, I'll
beautiful.
send you a copy of it. It's probably the best song I've ever written, and it is nothing like my entire genre. I mean, it doesn't fit it at all. It's completely outside of it. But the song is so powerful, and everybody that I play it for, I I kind of joke around that like 90% of the women that listen to this song cry. So that's the challenge. Listen to it and don't cry. But
No, I
it's
won't accept the challenge. I love a good cry.
but yeah, you'll
Love
definitely
a
have to check out this song.
good
But
cry.
again, I mean, by me singing it and putting it on my record, even though the style of it isn't southern rock, um, because it came from me, it's my voice that makes it my thing. And I
But
think
you're
that's
not in a place where you're struggling to establish your genre. You're not looking for your sound.
no,
So
I'm
to
not.
take,
I pretty
yeah,
much yeah, and it's I don't know. A lot of times you hear bands that once you've heard the first song, you've heard everything they've ever done. to
no,
me,
I don't know what you mean.
to me, a lot of heavy metal is like that. Not heavy metal guys don't get mad at me, but a lot of especially like the thrash metal and stuff is like to me, it's all the same thing. Once you've heard it, it's there. But one of my big influences as far as like that I pattern my music, my life after is Charlie Daniels. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Uh, he did this
I'll Google stuff before
the
I
Devil
send
Went
this
Down to
out.
Georgia. That was his big hit.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Charlie Daniels. But he was kind of famous for mixing all these genres into one thing that was just Charlie Daniels music. So on his album, I mean, he could have a country song, a bluegrass song, a rock song, a ballad, but because it was him and what he brought to it and his style of playing and his style of singing, it made it Charlie Daniels music. And that's kind of what I try to do with what I'm doing, rather than just like, okay, well, I've got to like again hit the check marks of all of the things that make this southern rock. I bring my influences into it to make it that it's Sam Morrison music, and I think that's the thing that people need to focus on when they're trying to find their genre is to find their voice, and that's
Yeah.
where you're gonna be comfortable.
Well, it's the hardest thing in the world to really know yourself. then
Yeah.
to put that music, I think it's a probably the task of a lifetime. And I think some people perhaps fall into it more easily than others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, obviously, because like I said, I mean, I see these people all the time in the forums and the chat rooms trying to find their genre, and
Well, I think it does come from that whole SMA micro niche thing. That
yeah,
you'll be a millionaire overnight if you can just find your micro niche. And so we all
well,
get it. When you first start with SMA, you do become. I know I've got only good things to say about
oh yeah,
SMA, but I think you can get lost. And CJ, is it CJ? CJ says
CJ,
all the
yeah,
time, just get on with it. Just pick something and get on with it.
well, exactly,
Because I think he gets frustrated with people spending months and months, in the forum asking and asking and asking, what do you think this is? And what do you think this is? And can I do this? And, I think it is a matter of, like you say, write more songs and then find what you want to focus in on. And I think part of that too is what's important to you.
yeah,
You know, I mean, because you can write, any of us who are creative and have some musical talent can draw from all the inspirations around us and create something.
yeah,
It's what means something to you, And a friend of mine said to me recently that you can be the best singer, the best pianist, the best whatever, guitarist in the world. What people come to hear are the songs.
yep. What do
It's
you
the
have to say?
Yeah, what do you have to say? And I think that's the thing that you have to find. Like, you can put it into whatever genre you want, I think, as long as you haven't lost your message.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And again, a good song is a great song. There's a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you've ever seen him or not. I mean, I'm trying to think of. I don't know his name, but he's got this thing called 10-second songs.
Okay.
And what he does is he'll take a song like the first one I saw him do was Dark Horse by Katy Perry, and this guy is an amazing singer. I mean, he's good. And so for the first 10 seconds, he plays the song. The first 10 seconds, he does it like Katy Perry does at the original version, and then 10 seconds later, he completely changes genre. Like he'll go from Katy Perry to Metallica, and he'll start singing the exact same song like Metallica. The instruments change, everything changes, and then he'll go from Metallica to Frank Sinatra. And you've got to check this guy out if you haven't seen it. It's called 10-second songs.
Check this out now. Yeah.
It's insane.
Wow.
And or then he'll take it from that to the Beach Boys, or and it's just amazing. But again, it doesn't lose the message of the song. It's just the way that you present it. And like I was telling you before, when I write a song, I can take that song and put it in any genre that I want to do it. But I kind of let the song speak for itself and what it wants to be. And that's like the song Somebody's Daughter that I was telling you about. There's no way I could put a slide guitar behind it and make it be a crunchy Southern rock song. It just wasn't calling for that. But the song.
And some songs speak to you so much that you just can't. You're just like, no, I don't care if it will earn me $1 million. I'm not changing this.
Yeah, I just let it be what it is. And, the funny thing is a lot of people, they listen to that song, like I said, and they love it, but it's so not like what we sound like. When they see the cover of it on iTunes, there's this big skull, and all this kind of stuff on the cover. And here's this really sensitive ballad that's going to make you cry. It's kind of but it is what it is. And I put it out that way. And I'm really, really proud of that song.
You're fighting the good fight against toxic masculinity.
Sure.
The me movement and all of that. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I hear these things all the time. I've been hearing a lot about toxic masculinity lately. I think I figured out what it means.
That's the first time I've ever heard that phrase, but
I think it has to do with men being made to feel like they're not allowed to have feelings.
Okay.
So, that whole idea that, men shouldn't cry, right. And men should, bottle it all up and keep it all inside. And yeah, I understand it to a small degree. I would have thought toxic masculinity was something else, but it's about masculinity being toxic to men, essentially. That,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
see what you're
being
saying.
to be, yeah. Anyway, I give it. It's a whole other. That's a genre all of its own. It'll become a genre before we know it. But I'll just check that if there's any questions that I've left out. No. I think we could go on and on. Like, genre is just the endless question. Like, you know, as a musician, I really and I'm still struggling with when people ask me straight out, "What's your genre?" Well, it's sort of this. But at the moment, I'm calling it indie pop with a classical twist.
Yeah, your music is really, from what I remember hearing right in the beginning to where you're at now. It's really focused a lot more, and it's great. I love it. I mean, it offends my toxic masculinity, but it's great.
Yes, when you said you were going to listen to it going up for your morning walk, I did warn you that it's not exactly like
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah,
it's not going to like, oh, I'm going to walk faster now.
right, right.
Because I know my cardio mix on my playlist is very different to what I actually play and sing myself. I don't listen to me when I'm out for a jog, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, look, it was great talking to you.
Well, you too.
And yeah, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It's
Oh,
just
no worries. My pleasure.
no, it's my pleasure, really, my pleasure to talk to you. A wealth of knowledge, especially here, because I don't know a great deal about Southern rock. So, and that's really what I want to do with this is let people tell their story so that we can all understand genre better, one genre at a time, you know, listening to
Yeah.
one musician tell their story about how they got there, what it is, what it sounds like, and then we can all go listen to your music and go, oh, that's what he was talking
That's
about.
what it
No,
is.
I can get rid of
Well,
that there.
what a lot of people say, it's too rock to be country, but it's too country to be rock, and it kind of lands right there in the middle of all that.
You gotta love people and their opinions.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, it was a great pleasure to chat with you,
Me
and
too.
I'll talk to you again soon. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for joining us.
You bet.
Okay, bye bye.